Hello, welcome. Corey Bradford here from SpeedComp. Just a quick tutorial on Renoise, particularly focused on jungle in the lead up to the Tracker Jungle workshop at the Troc, which is in the lead up to All School Jungle. If you've never looked at Renoise before, I'm going to rush through this pretty quickly, but basically you've got these tracks here, which we'll have when we load a sample. They'll have letter for the note, an octave, the actual number of the sample, and then the volume and the pattern effect. You can see that this part has like a kind of bracket around it, and that shows the window that's sort of activated. So when I click over here to the pattern sequencer where the actual tune is arranged, you can see that little bracket there to show that I've got that part activated. Overall, if you're writing jungle tracker stuff the traditional way, you'd only really need this section, so the sequencer, the pattern editor, and this sampler, and plenty of tunes just made with those two elements. So we're just going to have a little bit of a dive into making a tune based on this one, which is Magistrate's Big Tings. You'll notice when I load the waveform there, the entire tune comes in. There's plenty of great elements in this one to chop out. It's a really good one to learn from. I'm just going to speed through how to cut up a breakbeat, and the breakbeat that's just at the opening of this tune is Blowfly's Sesame Street, a really nice clean example of it with nothing underneath. There's also a sub just over there and a little vocal that will clip there. So just to recap, I'm not really going to touch this part because I'm just making a kind of one pattern beat. I am going to be using these little pattern editor tracks, probably three of them, one for the break, one for the sub, and one for the little vocal snippet. And I'm jumping between editor and sampler. First up, I'm just going to copy by holding down click and drag, copy the entire tune. Then I'm going to just left click and drag to the start and trim a little bit of this beat. So I find I'll just do a quick DC offset there. That's just important to do if you are sampling from old records or gear that might not have the voltage right. I look at a lot of tunes where there might be a very, very slight bit of silence at the very start of the sample. It's really important to trim that correctly for the start of a loop or a hit. We're going to look at a method of cutting up a breakbeat manually. There's obviously loads of tools, I guess like Recycle was an early tool to do that. I'm just click and drag to snip the start of that. And I'm just using the mouse wheel to zoom right in and you have to get real tight in there to check everything is accurate. So I'll just play this with Q on the keyboard. You'll note that when I loaded the sample editor, a little piano kind of started down there, and I can trigger sounds all across all those octaves, and you'll see it goes up to 9. The octave that it plays at when I'm entering the notes is up there, but for now let's just focus on the octave that this beat will work at. So I'm just going to press the middle C, so that's the 4, which is Q on the keyboard. Okay, I can hear there that it loops, so that's the sort of kick drum of the next bar of that break. Click and drag and delete. Now I'm just going to maximize it, so that's Control P. And now I've got a 1 bar loop, so 4 beats, so it's sort of like 1, 2, so that's my second beat, that's my third. Okay, I could automatically slice it, so Renoise does a good job of chopping up, like it's sort of showing me where those individual hits are. I'm going to turn that off. Like I don't want to do it that way. I'm actually going to do it the old-fashioned way. So first up, I'm just going to rename this one as Sesame or something. Okay, and then I'm going to show you how to quickly speed through and cut it all up the manual way. So this is not relying on slicing, and the reason I'm doing that is so that it works on traditional trackers. Like it'll work in Fast Tracker and in Pro Tracker, but we'll get to that in a second. So first up, what you should do is just find the sort of zero crossing point, find the point where that next hit starts, shift and click back, and then click and drag down. Now I've got 2 in 0 and in the 1 slot, 2 instances of the same break. I'm going to press Control T to trim that one. So I've just got the kick of that break. Next one, I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm going to click and drag and then trim that one. So now I've got, sorry, I'm going to click over this way, zoom right in, drag out, clip that again, and then trim. So I've got now a kick, a hi-hat, and the last part of it's going to be just in there. And let's just check, double check that that's nice and tightly trimmed. I can slide, like when I'm zoomed right in, I can slide down using the slider here. Then trim that one. So I've got my bass hi-hat snare. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and program that. I'll just clear that little bit of instrumentation. I know that this beat runs at 155. I'm just going to leave, the lines per beat are really significant, but we'll look at that a little bit later in another tutorial. I'm just going to, most people would have heard this pattern, and definitely would have heard the Sesame Street break many times if you're into jungle or drum and bass. Okay, I just deleted a few tracks there with Control Shift T, I think it was. And now I'm just going to copy that, click and drag over it, and press Alt F4 and then Alt F5. Okay, so now if I just press Control to play, I'm just pressing Escape or Spacebar to edit. You can change the preferences there. And I'm just manually looping that. Okay. Now, the next part of what I'm doing is chopping out the fill. Now, that is this part right at the end. And a lot of jungle breaks, the reason they're so versatile, the reason you can do so many interpolations, so many versions, is their fill. Like, is that the quality of the different kind of little drum hits they have inside it. Like, they don't just have a kick and a snare. They've got a lot of variation there. So I'm just going to do the same process, really chop through this quickly. You will note that I'm not being super tight with the trimming of these fills. It's really important to, one technique, one tip is to keep those kind of loose in some ways. Like, that's not always the case, but if you are too mechanical about the way that you trim them, you'll lose that kind of quantize, that sort of swing feel. There they are. Okay, so if I just sequence them just as they are, so 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 1 down. That's my 3 there. Okay. All right. So now I've got that. It'll be very boring, pattern, but we're just going to loop it 4 times. So as I press page up and down, so I can sort of go page up and down. In this instance, because I'm running at 4 lines per beat, it's just going to jump ahead 4 beats. So let's hear it. Okay, very straightforward and quite dull, but you get the idea. I'm just going to now just enter in, program in a few other variations. So I might use the 4, which is like an offset sort of snare, and the 6, and then the 2, and let's hear it again. There's a 3 there that probably could be a 2, sorry. Then and that's a 0 there. Okay, I'll just sort of making it on the fly, but you get the idea. And I've got that little stutter on the snare there, or that little re-trigger. I can edit I'm just using really like the old style effect, so this works, but I can, for example, change the volume. So I'm going to do that as a 2 and as a 3. And so in this case, M is the volume one, and I'm just changing the level. Let's have a listen. Something like that. This should be 1. Cool. What I can also do is go through, because I know I've got that sort of 4 and that 6 are my kind of fill ones. I can go and just pop those in different spots. So something like cool. Okay, and then a classic jungle move would be to put this an octave down. So I'll pop this section out, and then I'll go transpose just for the block. The selection is -12. So let's hear it again. Okay, very rough, but you get the idea. That's what we're about. Okay, next one, I'm just going to go back to the full magistrate tune and zoom in where I pointed out before to the sub. Now, again, you'd be zooming right in and finding that 0 crossing. So that's where the actual waveform is at 0 dB. That's sort of where that kick starts, which is it's kind of there, I think. Then we're going to, I'm using the mouse wheel to scroll back out, clip it there, trim, Control T. I still would be skeptical, especially with a bass sound. I'd probably still want to fade this in. So I'm just going to go Control Shift I to fade in. Just let's hear it. There's a little drip there, but that just adds to the roughness. Let's go in and just post that a bit. And you'll note that I'm just roughing it out, but obviously the beats in this bar, the first beat would be 0, then 16, then 32, and then 48. And I'm trying to kind of align with where there we go. Something like that. Okay, extremely rough, but that's enough to give you the idea. Last part of it, we'll just get in the magistrate. There's a little tiny vocal snippet, like there's a sort of housey kind of vocal. I think it's here. No, not that one, this one. That one's better, like a bit darker. Okay, again, we're trimming here, and it has that kind of time delay on it, and the classic jungle technique is to use that sort of time delay stuff, but with the pitch all over the shop. So I'll still go to the C4. Okay, there's a tiny, I think a little issue there at the start, like a little click where it might not have started at the 0, a bit of sloppy editing. So I'll just go in and Control X that, and then Control Shift I to fade in. Okay, this is our tune. It's very rough, it's pretty boring, and it just has one pattern, but we're going to listen to it. I'm going to make this a little bit less basic by just going 2 there. And then, so that's volume I'm using again, like that's an old school volume way. There's various ways. And then I'm gonna turn this on and off like really fast. So I think if I do like something like that, let's have a listen last round. Yeah, something like that. I'll change this to a 40, 4, and then every offset 1 to a 4. Okay, now if I was to continue this tune, I would duplicate a clone here. So 1, 2, 3. This is just one way to do it. Okay, so then I'm going to make a very, very simple song that starts with a vocal. So then starts with the bass, and then at the end of this pattern, the drums will drop out. Okay, that's my little song. You can see up the top here, it goes for 23 seconds. Probably too long for such a boring tune. But anyway, just to recap what we've done, I'm about to delete this one. What we've done is load a copy of Magistrate's Big Tings, which is actually a second sort of generation, probably third version of the break Sesame Street Blowfly from Sesame Street. We chopped it up the old-fashioned way, and we sequenced a really short tune. And that's it. Keep tuned in for more tutorials. But as a final bonus, I'll just show you one last trick. So we're just going to go File, Save As. We'll just save song. And I'm going to call this one Magi Set. Okay, and then, then I'm going to close this. Right now I'm in command prompt, and I'm just going to use this tool called XRNS. You can look this up, 2XMOD. Okay, and then I'm just going to write XRNS to XMOD shell, because it's like in the command prompt, and then my tune that I've got in this directory, which is magiset.xrns. All right, and it's reading the data and it's converting like the pattern and instrument data to the old school way. I'm going to exit out of there. Right now I'm in Fast Tracker. I'm going to load magiset.xm. Okay, and this should play. Like, only thing wrong with it is the classic issue with the speed. There we are. So you can hear that's running reasonably okay. There we go. BPM's okay, we fixed that issue. Now I'm going to go to trim and convert samples to 8-bit. I'm not going to calculate, I'm just going to trim. Okay, then I'm going to disk options, and I'm going to save as a mod. But before I do that, I'm just going to select over everything. This is a critical part to make this work. And I'm going to transpose up to the top octave, which is A6. Okay, and then I go save. It's probably going to complain a little bit, but I'm just going to go save. Okay, now I've changed the octave around, and I've also, for each sample, this is just one workaround, I've just gone 16-bit no and 8-bit yes for the conversion. Then I've saved my tune, exit out of that. Right now I've got Pro Tracker, a classic Amiga. This is a clone of a classic Amiga one. I'm just going to drop my tune in there. A3 is the highest octave that Pro Tracker will go to. Up the tempo, because I remember this one is at 155, something like that. And just hit play. You'll note that the volume commands have changed from an M to a C, but my program still holds true, it still kind of holds together. And that's it. See you next time.